Have some texts to share this morning, but before that, a quick story from Buddha. There was a man who came to a raging river and he needed to get across. And to get across, he looked around, and there by the side of the river there was a raft. And he took the raft and he rowed across and he was on the other side. Life is a journey, and he crossed and he was on the other side. Then he took the raft and he carried it, and he carried it and he carried it till he came to the next place. And there was a giant cliff, and he thought, how will I get the raft up the cliff? And he looked around. He found a rope eventually, and the rope helped him to scale the cliff. And he wanted to carry the rope and the raft. The next obstacle he came to was a wall of fire, and to get through the wall of fire he had to find a fire blanket and get through. The story is a parable. There are things in our lives that block us and hold us up, and there is always a way through. But the way we get through this disadvantage, the way we solve this problem, the way we get to the next stage isn't always the way we did it last time. The river is a symbol. The cliff is a symbol, the wall of fire is a symbol, and the solutions work, but they don't work for everything. When Jesus came, the people had solutions. They had tried the solutions. They knew they worked, but Jesus said, hey, there is a different way. There are better solutions for your life. Here are those stories.
Today's reflections come from Jesus' very own words, which are recorded in Matthew 5, Luke 10 and Matthew 25. The readings is from the N.T. White's translation, the New Testament for everyone.
You have heard that it was said, an eye for an eye and a tooth for a tooth. But I tell you, don't use violence to fight back against someone who wants to do harm to you. If they hit you on the right cheek, turn the other cheek towards them too. If anyone wants to sue you in court and take your shirt, let them have your coat too. If a soldier forces you to walk with him 1 mile, go the second with him too.
Once upon a time, he said, a man was going down from Jerusalem to Jericho and was set upon by brigands. They stripped him and beat him and ran off, leaving him half dead. A pastor happened to be going down that road, and when he saw him, he went past on the opposite side. So too an elder came by the place. He saw him too and went past on the opposite side. But a travelling foreigner came to where he was. When he saw him, he was filled with pity, and came over to him and bound up his wounds and put him on his own beast, took him to an inn and looked after him. The next morning, as he was going on his way, he gave the innkeeper 2 days' wages. Take care of him, he said, and on my way back I will pay whatever else is needed to be spent on him. Which of these three do you think turned out to be the neighbour to the man who was set upon by the brigands? The one who showed him mercy, came the reply. Well, Jesus said to him, you go and do the same.
The godly people will answer, Lord, when did we see you hungry and give you food? When did we see you thirsty and give you something to drink? When did we see you with no place to stay and welcome you into our home? When did we see you without clothes and give you something to wear? When did we see you sick or in prison or care for you? Then the king will answer, the truth is, anything you did for the least significant of any of my people here, you also did for me.
Thank you. Our journey we call life, and we have solutions, but as in Jesus' day, sometimes those solutions become the problems. And Jesus was talking about finding new, better, different solutions to things that we haven't been able to resolve. So we're starting with the Sermon on the Mount. In the Sermon on the Mount, we find Jesus inaugurating his kingdom. changing the way the world is, offering a new paradigm, a different perspective, a better way, what we call Christianity. So what is he trying to say? It's a manifesto, and it's about heaven on earth, because Jesus referred to the gospel of the kingdom. And he's saying, it's now, it's here, it's with you, I am the way. It's Jesus' agenda in action. Jesus says, you've been told, you've heard, you've read this in your scriptures, but I say unto you, and he reframes it. He takes what they thought was covenant law, what they thought was obligation, what they thought was absolutely necessary, and made it relevant, meaningful, and relational. The big question that the gospel answers is, what must I do to be saved? Many came to Jesus concerned about the problems in their life, the river, the cliff, the wall of fire, things they thought they could not get through, things that they'd tried to confront with law and behaviour and duty and obedience, and it hadn't always worked for them. And Jesus is saying, this is how you reframe your understanding. These are the real values. This is what Christianity is all about. The Sermon on the Mount is not simply a list of moral obligations. It is something much more. It is a manifesto for Christian living. It was a challenge to the Pharisees, and it was also a challenge to us. The first little reading that we had is the axiom, turn the other cheek. And if we don't understand what that means, we think it just means more of the same. Well, it absolutely does not, and it is a challenge to the one who is abusing. It is a challenge to the one who is oppressing. It is a challenge to the one who is belittling. Because as you're well aware, this hand, the left hand, was not used for anything other than what it was used for, so they kept it in their pocket. This is the one that they wrote with, that they fed themselves with, that they talked with, and they did everything with. And it's the right hand that they're using when they come across this situation. So we're thinking of something like slave and master. We're thinking of something like the entitled and the disadvantaged. And to slap the face was a put down. It was discrimination. It was demeaning. And you used the back of your hand like so. And if you turned the other cheek, this hand didn't come out of the pocket. The hand then had to turn palm towards the face. What does that mean? That means that no longer are you confronting an insubordinate. No longer is this person your slave. No longer is this person some wayward child. No longer is this person some insubordinate that you're putting down. When you use the palm of your hand, when you turn the other cheek, you are forcing the oppressor to recognise that you are equals. So Jesus is saying there is in the world things that you don't like. There are times that you will be put down. There are people who are mean-spirited, but turning the other cheek means to stand up for your dignity and insist on being equal. Turning the other cheek is a challenge to the way the world is, and it's saying Christian values release you from oppression and from discrimination. It flips the guilt and shame back to the aggressor. The one who wants to shame you, when he has to turn his hand for the other cheek, is then shamed himself. It's confrontational. The next story is about giving your coat. And as we might have read it growing up, it simply meant, well, they want something, just give them a bit more than they want. But in reality, those in Jesus' time who lived by the Levitical law well understood that you could not take a man's coat. Because often the coat was also his blanket, and it's what he, if he was very poor, it's what he wore in the day and slept in during the night. So instead of taking them to court, challenging them for their possessions by saying, I'll take the shirt off your back, Jesus is saying, when you're in court and when your oppressor, your abuser is saying, I want everything you've got and I will take your shirt, offer him your coat as well. Who then is shamed? Who then is the one breaking the law? Who is the one doing the wrong thing? You can just imagine the picture outside the courthouse. The debtor goes in, and when he comes out, he's not there in his coat, having given up his shirt. He's there in whatever else he has left. And people will be saying, as the media turns up, why are you standing almost naked before us? How did that happen? Because the extortionist was abusive and he took everything. And offering your coat when someone asks for what little you have left is confronting to the oppressor. What Jesus does is to flip the situation so the extortionist is the one who is forced to see you as a dignified human being, someone who is an equal. The second mile doesn't just mean do a bit more, doesn't just mean go a bit further. I think we all understand that in Roman law it was regulation that if a soldier carrying his pack came upon a civilian here and he needed to go a distance, he could say, take my bags, take my armour, carry my stuff. Which is oppression really, because these are the invaders in a foreign land. But the regulations were that you could only demand that of a civilian for 1,000 steps. So you could just imagine the Jews counting out the 1,000 steps as they carried the heavy armour. It would have been about 35 kilos. That's a pretty heavy expedition pack. So there they are, counting out the steps, counting out the steps. When they got to 1,000 steps, 1 mile, they could put the pack down, and law said that the soldier could not ask any more of you. Well, it said more than that. It said the soldier in the Roman army can ask that duty of a civilian, but no more, and if he does, he will be punished because he's exceeded his authority. And so, when you've got to that point and you put the pack down and you say to the oppressor, hey, I'll carry it a bit longer, I can do that, the Roman soldier's going to say, no, I'll be in trouble. You're making me break the law. I can't ask you to do that. Once again, Jesus has taken the situation and he's flipped it around so that the one who is embarrassed, guilty, is the oppressor, not the oppressed. It's a new paradigm. It's a different way of looking at things. It means that the gospel of the kingdom is a release from abuse, and injustice is challenged and confronted. This is the gospel of the kingdom. And what is the Good Samaritan story about? We've heard it many times and we've talked about it probably just as many. But in a sense, it's about identity and it's about boundaries. And who do we expect to be part of our monoculture Christian community? Those like us. But in this story, the one who is the neighbour, the one who is the righteous, the one who is doing the appropriate and correct thing, the one who's taken the what next question and done something about it, is someone who is different. And we know how different the Samaritans and the Jews were in the way they worshipped, in the way they lived, in what they believed, what they expected, how they responded, how they treated to it, how they treated each other, how they related, all of that. And yet, in this story, the right people who should have responded, on the other side of the road, we're not going to get involved here, maybe they'd left the temple and were heading home. Maybe the piety and perfection of their life at that moment of holiness was just too much for them to get involved in blood, guts, pain and distress, but not for the Samaritan. So he breaks the tradition. He changes the paradigm. He rewrites the identity. He clarifies the values. Who was the neighbour? The one who did the right thing. Why don't you go and do the same? Is what Jesus said. In this story, Jesus emphasises that love, grace, compassion, salvation is not just for that little slither of people who belong, but for the whole wide, expansive world. It is not just a cultural thing, it is a universal thing. Let's think about our journey. It's not just about the destination, it's about the journey itself. And which one of us would dare leave someone on the side of the road? And if we are the one on the side of the road, which one of us would look to the one offering support, succour, compassion, and say, I'm waiting for the right person to come along? We are on a journey. The question is, what next? What next is measured in our response to Jesus' sermons and his stories. We do offer our coat. We do go the second mile. We do find the person in need of support and take them from the side of the road to a place of safety. All of these things are the things that we do next. Is it about our behaviour? Maybe, but it isn't really measured in behaviour. It's measured in identity. Salvation is, in a sense, an understanding of who God is and who we are. Christian values, Christian behaviour is us, and it's the way we live our lives that determine how close we are to that great destination.